Howdy, 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 gang. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard. Tonight is Wednesday, June 22nd, 2022. This is live stream 803. This is your first time joining me, let me point out, super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news. And then we normally will take a look at a new game, or sometimes a classic game. Tonight, I'm actually going to share one of my live reviews. I know I don't do that too often, but I am. So tonight, I'm actually going to share my thoughts about Original Adventures Reincarnated Volume 5, Castle Amber from Goodman Games. This is a 5e conversion of the classic Dungeons & Dragons adventure, which originally appeared in 1981. So that is coming up in just a bit. Should also mention, if you're not familiar with this stream, we tackle the tabletop gaming news first. So if you are tuning in to take a peek at Castle Amber, let me point out, it's going to be about 35 minutes before we jump on in. So if you're watching live, kick your feet up, relax, take a load off, and just kind of surf with us for a while and enjoy the latest in tabletop gaming news. If you are watching 30 minutes or more after this stream ends, however, you can jump ahead. There are timestamps. They are in the show notes, or depending on the device you happen to be watching this on, they may actually be embedded in the timeline of the video already as well. So that's something to keep in mind too. Don't forget, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Also, because this is a live stream, that means there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways that I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you do have to be a subscriber to the channel for at least 48 hours to take part in chat. Yet another way that I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you want to say howdy, or maybe you've got a question, a comment, by all means, chime in, and I will do my best to respond. First out the gate tonight is Mr. Eddie T, one of our chat moderators, is joining us. I would take a guess that that means Sarah D is not far behind, or might be lurking. She happens to be another of our chat moderators as well. So it is Wednesday. Yay! It's like my Friday. I have very short weeks here at the Gaming Gang, that is for sure. But I got a lot of stuff cooking, hopefully, for this weekend. Not sure if I'm going to pull it off, but I will kind of discuss what's on the agenda as well. So Kathy Evans and the aforementioned Sarah D are joining us in chat as well. So let's jump on into the latest in tabletop gaming news, because on the horizon from Gauntlet Entertainment is their first board game. It is Keystone North America. Here's the latest. In Keystone North America, you and your friends will take on the role of biologists and work to build an interconnected ecosystem through the careful placement of cards and also using skills to introduce important keystone animals and perform wildlife research in order to, hopefully, maximize your points. Keystone North America offers multiple ways to play. Go head-to-head against your friends in multiplayer and see who can build the healthiest ecosystem, or experience a narrative adventure that will take you on a journey across North America with the Field Journal. This fully illustrated book contains a solo or co-op campaign where you'll solve puzzles, learn about amazing animals, and explore the different ecosystems that make up North America. We're excited to bring to your table this beautiful, easy to learn, brain burning strategy game designed by Jeffrey Joyce and Isaac Vega. Keystone North America seeks to share the deep passion for wildlife and conservation biology held by its co-designer, Jeffrey Joyce. His passion for teaching conservatism through play and a love of designing games convinced us that Keystone North America was the perfect game for our first release. I think that word should have been conservation, not conservatism. I got this sell sheet info from a location that I normally don't grab stuff from. So I don't know if, because I don't believe Gauntlet Entertainment is English as a first language company. So as an example, the images you're seeing right now are for the cards, and the cards are actually in Hungarian. But I use those images because I wanted to share a bunch of those cards as opposed to just the handful that I saw images of that were in English. Artwork looks really, really cool for this as well. So not too shabby there. It's for 1 to 4 players, ages 10 and up. Plays around 30 to 60 minutes. It's going to carry an MSRP of $45 when it arrives in July. Yes, there you have it. Let me grab a quick sip here. It is weirdly dry in the Duct Tape Studios tonight. Very strange, even though I had a humidifier going down here. I don't know. Do not know. Yes, normally this would be the time of year you'd be using a dehumidifier, but it was super, super dry down here, so I ran a humidifier down here for a little bit. So on to our next news piece. Like I said, for some reason, it's kind of like, my voice is all crunchy. It's like, what? Making its way into stores this August is a new edition of the Call to Adventure board game. And here's the scoop on Epic Origins from Brotherwise Games. In this hero crafting card game, 1 to 4 players compete to earn the highest destiny score while cooperating to defeat the adversary. Like the original Call to Adventure, Epic Origins is a tableau building game where players draft cards, cast runes, and overcome challenges to score victory points. For players familiar with Call to Adventure, Epic Origins introduces a high fantasy theme inspired by classic dungeon crawling RPGs. The new heritage card type provides options like elf, halfling, and dwarf. Class cards allow you to invest experience to level up your character. High fantasy themes and challenges can be found throughout the game's 150 plus unique cards. The game also features overhauled solo and co-op play. Double-sided adversaries provide an evolving challenge. Face a lower level adversary at the end of Act 2, then the final adversary at the end of Act 3. In campaign mode, players can unlock new cards by defeating each new adversary. The game incorporates more rewards for cooperative play while still incentivizing individual achievement. While points decide the winner of the game, Call to Adventure encourages storytelling at the end of the game. Epic Origins also includes a guide for converting your final tableau into a 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons character. That's interesting. Call to Adventure Epic Origins is, once again, for 1 to 4 players. It's for ages 13 and up, plays in 30 to 60 minutes. It's going to carry an MSRP of $44.95 when it arrives on August 24th. I enjoyed the original Call to Adventure. I did feel that it just felt like it was missing a little something. I wonder if this high fantasy and kind of revamped co-op play is what I felt was missing originally. I liked it. If I remember off the top of my head, I think I gave it a 7.5 or 8 out of 10. And the artwork is just phenomenal throughout the game as well. I should also mention in August, there are decks of cards that are come out with the artwork from Call to Adventure. Have nothing to do actually with the game itself. They are just standalone cards that you can utilize in your own role-playing games as a game master, perhaps, or if you just dig cool fantasy art. All right, let's move on to some role-playing game news, because currently up for crowdfunding is the Pathfinder 4 Savage Worlds Advanced Player's Guide, as well as the Curse of the Crimson Throne boxed set. Here's the skinny from Pinnacle Entertainment Group. Only your heroes can rescue the Jewel of Varesia from the dangers threatening to tear it apart. Adventure through 6 books of shadowy intrigue, deadly plague, and foes from all sides using the Savage Worlds rule set. Between the machinations of crime lords, the harsh trials of the Shoanti barbarians, the undead legions of Kazavan, and the draconian fist of the Queen, can your party save Korvosa from ruin? The Curse of the Crimson Throne box set comes with everything you need for an unforgettable role-playing experience. In addition to the 6 softcover books of the adventure path, you also get the Guide to Korvosa, which details everything you need to know about the culture, geography, and peoples of the port city. You also get a full-color Crimson Throne poster map to track your party's adventures along this savage and exciting tale. There are new adversary cards just for Curse of the Crimson Throne, so keep stats for important and useful enemies right at your fingertips, while the Crimson Throne handouts give your players tangible clues to uncover the sinister secrets of this fan-favorite epic. Use the Harrow deck to perform a mystical harrowing that speaks to the past, present, and future of your heroes. These tellings grant special benefits to the players and even foreshadow moments where each character serves as the chosen servant of destiny. Of course, you'll need new tools to face off against these new threats, which is where the Advanced Player's Guide comes in, with new ancestries, edges, hindrances, gear, powers, and magic items. There's something for everyone. Unfortunately, there's no video. I was kind of surprised. There is no Kickstarter video for this from Pinnacle Entertainment Group. So we just get these images. You can reserve a copy of the Advanced Player's Guide for Pathfinder 4 Savage Worlds for a $30 pledge, or grab the PDF for a $15 pledge. You can score both the guide and Curse of the Crimson Throne box set for a $150 pledge, or go all digital for a $100 pledge through July 14th. Expected delivery for the digital items is this September. Physical items should release next April. Yes. Flaming Huron is with us in chat, mentioning, doesn't seem right to mention anything Savage Worlds and for the Madman not to be here. Yes, the Madman, if you're not overly familiar with this show, is one of our chat moderators, as is Flaming Huron. And this is his gaming night every other Wednesday. And then he's going to be on vacation, so we will not see him around probably for a couple of weeks. So Sarah D says, withhold all Savage Worlds news until the Madman returns week after next. No. There may not be a lot of Savage Worlds news in the next 2 weeks, because this is going on right now, and I don't think Pinnacle Entertainment wants to steal this thunder. I do have to mention, though, there is no way for you to get just the Curse of the Crimson Throne. I thought that was very strange. I took a look through the various different pledge levels. It's either get the Advanced Player's Guide, I almost said Character's Guide, separate, or you get them both together. There is no pledge level just for Curse of the Crimson Throne, which I thought was a little strange. Also got to point out, it's kind of pricey. So you figure the box set, it's $120. And if you go just for the PDF, it's essentially $85. Thought that was a little high. All depends on what you're getting, though. So we do know there are 6 books. Should we assume? Because I have not seen Rise of the Rune Lords for Pathfinder for Savage Worlds. So I'm taking a guess. We've got the books maybe about the size of the usual Paizo Pathfinder adventure paths. 100 pages or so. Although I got to admit, lately, Paizo's been cutting down on the page count on some of those. In fact, the standalone adventure Shadows at Sundown was priced as a 100-page release, and it was like only 64. I was kind of like, huh. Although it's, according to Sammy, it's a good adventure. So there is that. I'd be interested in checking this out. I know the Madman himself, I believe, is starting a Pathfinder for Savage Worlds campaign this weekend. Tessie Trekkie's with us in chat. Good to see you. Double T. They mentioned that they could brain someone with their Deadlands box set. That's another game I would have liked to have seen the newest edition for. Because I used to buy all the splats for that. I picked it up when it first came out years and years and years ago. What was it? Early 90s. Even though I never ran it. Whenever I'd see something was out, I go, oh, okay, I'll pick that up. Or the little, what did they call them? Dime novel adventures that they came out with as well. So, sweet. Boris is with us. Good to see you, Boris. So, chat's off and running so far tonight. Next up, now available in hardcover and PDF from Renegade Game Studios, is Hunter, the Reckoning 5e. And that is the 5th edition of Hunter the Reckoning, not Hunter the Reckoning for 5e. Here's the dope. Humanity clings to a comfortable illusion that the world belongs to mankind, that they lead lives of free-willed individuality, completely unaware that they occupy a world of grim mysteries inhabited by monsters. Those savvy to the secrets of the world of darkness know the truth, however, that timeless blood drinkers, ravening shapeshifters, restless ghosts, and even more harrowing things haunt the night. Hunters are among those who have seen past the veil of secrecy and know the world for what it is, a bauble in the claws of monsters. Hunters fight back against the threat because they have glimpsed the truth and resolved to do something about it. You saw what you shouldn't have, the veil pulled back from the secret world and the monsters who prowl it. You chronicled the tragedies they wrought, these monsters, and the victims upon whom they preyed. You grasped the extent of their influence and witnessed the corruption of the organizations formed to keep them in check, and you vowed to do something about it. Tonight, you act. It's time for a reckoning. This is a full-color book which introduces the Hunters of the World of Darkness for 5th edition. So this is what I'm trying to figure out here. Is this a World of Darkness game that's a standalone? Right? Because we are on 5th edition Vampire the Masquerade, which is now with Renegade Game Studios. So, and this is a World of Darkness game. So it's a little confusing how this is being presented. So Tessie Trekkie says it's standalone. That's what I thought too, that it is not for 5e D&D. So it's like, what? Features chapters on character creation, supernatural threats, and rival organizations. The 286-page hardcover of Hunter the Reckoning is available for an MSRP of $55, or you can grab the PDF for $38.50. So, gotta say, PDF's a little pricey, and it is not on drive-through RPG yet. So, right, Tessie Trekkies pointing out the 5e label comes from Vampire. Right. Exactly how I figured it. But the way it's presented, somebody over at Renegade Game Studios should have, when they were putting this together, the presentation, they should have been thinking of, when people hear 5th edition or 5e used alone, they immediately think Dungeons and Dragons. So as an example, the sell sheet info says introduces the Hunters of the World of Darkness for 5th edition. Which, as I thought, I figured it was for 5th edition Vampire, or based on the mechanics of 5th edition Vampire the Masquerade. But like I said, it could be a little confusing. So if you are fans of the World of Darkness and you enjoy the human side of the equation, by all means, you're going to want to check out Hunter the Reckoning. So who do we just... Did I just see John Vogel in here? Yes, John Vogel is with us. So is 245 Trioxin. John asks, is it a War Game Wednesday? And as was pointed out in chat, no, we're in the midst of a fantasy role-playing game celebration all month long. So all the shows are devoted to a fantasy role-playing game release of some sort. So 245 Trioxin says, maybe we'll see a Savage World of Darkness someday. I don't know. I think Savage Worlds has plenty of their own settings that they could draw from. Right now, I still think that there are some behind the scenes things going on with the whole World of Darkness and Paradox Interactive, and probably not so much Renegade Game Studios anymore. But if you remember, when 5th edition Vampire the Masquerade was released, that was through Modiphius Entertainment and World of Darkness. So, and there were, let's say that there were some items in some of the books that did not go over well with some folks. That's why it got yanked. And it is now with Renegade Game Studios, which is kind of interesting because Renegade has produced some role-playing games. They're just dipping their toes in not too long ago. And now they've got quite a few. They've got the G.I. Joe role-playing game, which I think is on its way. The My Little Pony role-playing game. Yep, there you go. Testy Trekkie just pointed that out too. And Transformers. And also Overlight, which was kind of, got to be honest, it was a little undercooked when I reviewed it. So hopefully maybe they've kind of ironed that out a little bit as well. Right, on to the final news piece. Because there's a new adventure that's arrived for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Here's the latest on Skarok in a Hard Place from Cubicle 7 Entertainment. Those who make their lives in the Empire's scattered villages and hamlets know their existence is often perilous. Roving bands of beastmen, bandits, and even the standing armies of petty lords all threaten these precarious settlements. Few hazards are more feared than orc warbands, who often sweep through the Empire, leaving death and ruin in their wake. Even smaller warbands can be a threat, and when the mayor's son is taken, an entire village is left wondering if the orcs will really stop there. Skarok in a Hard Place is an exciting adventure for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Hired to rescue a young man kidnapped by orcs, the characters find themselves dragged into the internal disputes and vicious infighting of an orc warband. Clearly, the orcs can't be trusted, but even the characters' human allies are not above suspicion. Can they navigate a web of violence and betrayal to succeed, Or will they find themselves trapped between Skyrock and a hard place? Womp, 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 womp. This adventure can be used as a standalone tale, serve as the starting point for new adventures, or be easily slotted into any ongoing WIFRIP campaign. You can score the 23-page PDF of Skyrock and a Hard Place at Drive-Thru RPG for $4.99. Strangely enough, it seems as if the fine folks, my friends over at Cubicle 7 Entertainment, can't decide what they want to title this adventure. Because as you see here from the cover, it is Skyrock and a Hard Place. The adventure is being titled Between Skyrock and a Hard Place on Drive-Thru RPG, including in its URL. So it's like, so which is it? Is it Skyrock and a Hard Place, or is it Between Skyrock and a Hard Place? Either way, the title's kind of funny. So that is available right now, and you can snag it for $4.99 over at Drive-Thru RPG. All right, that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I was just talking about Drive-Thru RPG. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, are affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. And if you are going to go visit, say, I don't know, Drive-Thru RPG, be sure to swing on by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you like what we do, you can always buy me a cup of coffee or some soda by visiting paypal.me/thegaminggang and making a small donation. Also, there are some used and new board games and role-playing games that are currently for sale over on thegaminggang.com, because I am trying to raise funds to pay for the new overhead camera that I purchased that the battery died on us last night. So that's not going to happen tonight. I'm going to tell you that right now. So there's that. Should mention, I am going to put some war games up there for about a week. And there are probably about 25, 26 war games, some GMT, some Compass. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I take that back. I don't have any Compass. Worthington. So got a few. I got some indies, independents out there as well. So they will only be up for about a week, because the ones that people don't purchase are going to go to Gen Con and go into the auction, because for some strange reason, I always do really well bringing war games to the Gen Con auction. So there is that. All righty. One thing I do want to mention before we jump on into my review of Original Adventures Reincarnated, Volume 5, Castle Amber, is that now, okay, of course, now I completely zoned on it. What I was going to talk about. I did. I completely zoned out. I was like, oh, yeah, don't forget, Jeff. I'm thinking to myself, don't forget. Be sure to mention. And now it's like, what the hell was I going to mention? Because I didn't want to just jump right into, our intermission yet. I was trying to stall for time. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Talking about the camera. So what I am going to do, because with the Sony, if I turn the Sony on in the middle of the stream, it would lock things up. Mr. ADT says the first thing to go is the memory. It is. Kevin R. Smith has popped on into chat with us as well. Good to see Kevin. Anyway, so what would happen is if I turned it on in the middle of the stream, it would lock it up. It would lock up the camera view. I've been playing around with this new Panasonic GH5 Mark II, and it's not doing that. So what I've been doing, I've been playing around with the cameras. The overhead camera's not on. So usually when I had the Sony, both cameras were on to start the stream. Then again, I did have a dummy camera for the Sony, so I didn't have to worry about batteries dying. But I don't have a dummy battery yet for this new camera. So it is off right now. So what I'm going to do is, while you're watching an intermission, I'm going to be turning that on. So there is that. So anyway, so that is exactly what I was going to tell you. So Sarah D says, if the first thing to go is memory, then Mr. Eddie T is doomed. Flaming Heron says, hi, I thought it was your hairline. Not in my case. Yeah, I have hair. So my head of hair is still pretty decent. All righty then. So, as I mentioned, we're going to jump in. I'm going to share my review of Castle Amber. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
We are about to witness the takeoff of the first manned rocket to outer space. We pick up the count. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0!
We're off to visit the planets. There are treats galore in the stars. Venus is loaded with candy, and ice cream is found upon Mars. The soda pop's fizzing on Saturn. When you're thirsty, it sure hits the spot. And Jupiter's really jumping with popcorn that's buttered and hot. But the best of them all is the planet where all of these treats are at hand. And that is the spot we now head for, our theater refreshment stand.
How's that cigar I gave you?
I like it better than that Wilkins coffee.
Stronger, too, isn't it?
Here's the way we quench our thirst, quench our thirst, quench our thirst. Here's the way we quench our thirst. At the refreshment counter, now's the time to yum, 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 yum. Now's the time to yum, yum, yum. At the refreshment counter, popcorn, drinks, and candy too, candy too, candy too. Popcorn, drinks, and candy too. At the refreshment counter, at the refreshment counter, at the refreshment counter.
This is the way we yum, 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 yum. Kind of bizarre. Hey, we got another Wilkins and Wonkins. And Wonkins did not get killed, so there is that. All right. Damn, like I said, it's weirdly dry down here. So tonight, I am going to be sharing my review of Original Adventures Reincarnated Volume 5, Dungeons & Dragons, Castle Amber from Goodman Games. The original adventure was written by Tom Moldvay. This 5e conversion is written by Michael Curtis and Tim Wadzinski, with artwork provided by Errol Otis, Chris Arneson, Fred Daly, Tom Galambos, Doug Kovacs, Cliff Karowski, William McAuslin, Brad McDevitt, Jesse Moan, Peter Mullen, Stefan Pogue, and Chad Surgeketter. The 286-page hardcover is available right now. It carries an MSRP of $49.99. As Dan Kellogg has joined us in chat, welcome aboard. All right, so let's swing on over to, I should say, Bane 122 is with us as well. Swinging on over to the other camera here, I've got Castle Amber. So do want to mention, this was actually sent along to me from a fan of the show. So this is not a review copy. So this is not from Goodman Games. I am going to stay picture in picture up here as we take a peek through. And of course, that means as we look through the book, I'll be cutting off a little bit of the upper left portion of the hardcover. We're not going to look at each and every page, but I do want to give you a good feel for the adventure as I discuss it. And this is an adventure. And yes, of course, granted, this is over 40 years old. The original, not this conversion. But there are going to be spoilers. So I will discuss a few spoilers. I'm not going to go heavy into the spoilers, but there will be spoilers. So you have been warned. So if you're a player hoping that your dungeon master is going to run either the original module or this 5th edition conversion, by all means, I would recommend you tune on out. All right, let's take a look at the back here. Castle Amber, an adventure for character levels 3 to 7. They fled from the far-flung land of Renegade. I think that's how it's pronounced. The Amber family, a bloodline of wizards and warriors persecuted for their dark sorcery and occult crimes. In their new world, they built a lavish manor for themselves, the fabulous Castle Amber. For a time, the Ambers flourished, their magical and military might having little equal. Then, however, jealousy and murder struck the heart of the family, and the curse of Stephen Amber descended upon the castle like a fell and heavy hand. Now the Ambers dwell beyond space and time, imprisoned with their monstrously transformed servants and suffering under the family's dead patriarch's death-sent doom. It is into this mad manor that the party awakens, plucked from their homeworld and imprisoned in the heart of Castle Amber. To escape, the heroes must negotiate a path through the insane Amber family home, overcoming the clan's machinations, dangerous servants, cunning traps, and bizarre phenomena. Only by finding a way to break the curse of Stephen Amber will the party be able to return home. Failure means a lifetime of imprisonment in Castle Amber, a place where lifetimes can be very short indeed. Dun, dun, dun. Let's jump on in. So we're going to start off with some articles, some short articles discussing the original adventure. So Michael Curtis actually is the author of a few of them. It's not just like in past original Adventures Reincarnated releases. We see the new author of the conversion kind of talks a little bit about their experience. Michael Curtis actually, if I remember right, I think he actually pens 3 of the articles here. So there's a picture of Michael Curtis getting ready to play Star Frontiers back in 1982. There's a little discussion of Clark Ashton Smith. We will talk about him in a little more detail in just a moment. So we've got some cool little articles throughout to get us kicked off. So I appreciate in this volume, they're 1 or 2 pages long. We had some interviews in previous editions that were fine. I mean, they were okay, but some kind of dragged on a little bit. So one aspect of this that I want to point out is that we get 1 edition of Castle Amber. We do not get multiple copies. So I was very happy to see that. So it's only the 1. I do want to mention, though, that our page count has dropped quite a bit for this volume, where we had 400 pages, 300 and some pages. We're down to 268 for this. There is still a ton of gaming content, though, I will point out. So some of those extra pages in previous volumes were devoted to just repeating some of the reprints or different print runs of the adventures. So I don't mind that. I would have liked to have seen maybe the price dip a little bit, because this does carry an MSRP of $49.99, as do all the volumes before it with much larger page counts. So here we have our gatefold map, which shows us our original Castle Amber map. So one of the interesting aspects of the original adventure is it's really not a castle. It's a chateau. It is a large chateau, but it is kind of French Renaissance era design. So it is not necessarily a castle, even though the image on the front is a castle. So Tom Oldvay wrote this adventure, and in this adventure, there's a lot of aspects of Clark Ashton Smith's fantasy stories throughout. In fact, this might actually be the first adventure that utilized licensed material, because it was arranged with the estate of Clark Ashton Smith to use his setting. I always forget how to pronounce it, because I've heard it pronounced a bunch of different ways. Let me jump. So we actually get a pronunciation guide. Avern Wanye. I always want to just say Avignon, which is a real region of France. Wanye is not. It is a fictional area of France. In fact, the Clark Ashton Smith stories are kind of a fantasy France where there is magic. So we get the reproduction of the original 32-page adventure. Of course, you know, one thing that caught my eye is that a lot of people think that read aloud box text is relatively modern as far as Dungeons and Dragons. That is not the case. So you figure this was released for the expert set for Dungeons and Dragons back in 1981, and this adventure has read aloud in it, box text. So something I wanted to point out, because I know that some folks think that is more from like the 2000s on, and that is not the case. All right, just wanted to share a little bit of what you're going to find with the original adventure. I like Castle Amber. I don't love Castle Amber. I find, I personally, I don't know if I would put it in my like top 20 Dungeons and Dragons adventures. I know it is really well thought of. It's a bit too much of a funhouse adventure in my opinion. And that's how it's referred to everywhere, is as a funhouse adventure. And if you're not familiar with what that term means, is essentially what it is. It's set piece by set piece by set piece by set piece. There's really no ecology to the dungeon. There's really no thread running through the various different encounters. It's just, oh, here's this weird thing. Oh, here's something odd. Here's something bizarre. I mean, there are cool encounters in the adventure, but another aspect of a funhouse adventure is each of the locations, each room, what have you. It's almost as if you walk in and they've been waiting for you to show up. So it's like, what are these orcs doing in this room? It's like, oh, well, they're there just because, you're showing up. I will point out that Michael Curtis, for some of these encounters, does try to provide a little bit of background. Another aspect of the original adventure is that outside of maybe 2 or 3 NPCs, there's really no motivation given for the NPCs that you run across. So thankfully, we've got a little more of that has been fleshed out in the 5e conversion. Of course, there's more new content added to the adventure as well. So we've got that. But for the most part, you are still going to find that this is an old school Renaissance sort of adventure. That this is designed for levels. This is 3 to 6 for 5e. Originally for expert, I think it was 3 to 7, if I remember correctly. So the levels really haven't changed much. This is also supposed to be for 6 to 10 players, 6 to 10 characters. That is a little strange. And that's even still in the conversion. It is designed for 6 or more players, which is kind of difficult. Most adventures these days are really designed for a group of 4. That's kind of our sweet spot now. So here we go. We get a Doug Kovacs map. So Doug Kovacs does all of the very cool Dungeon Crawl Classics maps that are always pretty fun. And that's what we're going to see. We're going to see those style maps throughout, like we have in each of the adventures in this series. There are cool things going on in this adventure. This is an adventure that pays homage to, really seriously, Clark Ashton Smith, of course, as I mentioned previously, but also some Robert E. Howard, some Edgar Allan Poe, specifically The Fall of the House of Usher, and H.P. Lovecraft. So the adventure kind of starts off where the player characters wake up and they go to sleep in the wilderness. They're supposed to be on their way to a city, which is in the old D&D. I want to say it's Mystara, the world that was that D&D was set in, not a D&D. I'm not talking Greyhawk. I'm not talking Forgotten Realms. And the player characters go to sleep on a hilltop, and they wake up in the courtyard of this chateau. And there's this gray mist that surrounds it, so they can't leave. If they try to leave, the mist will kill them. So they're stuck. So they have to find a way to escape. And what's going on is this chateau is under a spell that has stopped time. So no one, including the player characters, needs to eat, drink, or sleep inside Castle Amber. And there's all these different Amber family members, and none of them are sane. Now, some are eccentric, some are absolutely insane, some are evil. For the most part, they're neutral. And this family is essentially a family of sorcerers. And the world that they come from, sorcery is outlawed. And it is, it's dark magic. So they fled the fantasy France for the player characters world. And the castle was there, the chateau was there for quite a while before the curse was placed on the chateau causing everything to stop. Kevin says the setting's called either Mystara or the Known World. Yeah, that's what I meant to say, the Known World. As we've pointed out in the past, if you are familiar with the Gaming Gang and me, I mentioned I did not play basic or expert role like Dungeons and Dragons. I almost said basic or expert role playing. So I didn't play that. I didn't play that basic or expert role playing. I need another sip. And I swear, this is just Diet Cola. Nothing in it. We did play AD&D. And so I played basic D&D as a player a couple of times, but for the most part, it was all AD&D, and didn't even play AD&D that long. By 82, that was it. All right. So anyway, as I was saying, so the player characters have to find a way to be able to escape this chateau. And then they find themselves in this fantasy France, which could be relatively complex for some dungeon masters to pull off, because we go from something that's very linear to suddenly going to something that is very sandboxy. And it is a land where magic is forbidden, right? It's a crime. It's demon worship, right? So your magic users' hands are a little tied. And of course, if you have demi-humans at all, going to be a problem with that. How are you going to explain the halfling? That's a kid, a little kid. Okay, you might be able to pull that off, but you're not going to be able to explain half orcs or tieflings. So anyway, so that's when the player characters are going to need to find 4 magic items. They need these 4 magic items so that they can find the hidden tomb of Stephen Amber, who has placed this curse. So there's quite a lot going on here, and there are a multitude of various different encounters. The sandbox, the wilderness portion of the adventure has been fleshed out quite a bit. In the original adventure, there was a lot of hand waving, because for one, it was only a 32-page adventure, and the main focus was on the chateau. The main focus wasn't going to be on the sandbox wilderness portion and then having to create cities and things like that. So there wasn't a ton of detail in the original adventure. Much of it has been fleshed out. We have some additional new areas as well. We have a new mini dungeon leading up to the tomb. This can be a really, really difficult adventure for characters to survive. And this can very easily turn into a total party kill sort of adventure, even with the difficulty of killing off characters in 5th edition D&D. You'll see a lot of it with this adventure if the dungeon master isn't on their toes, making sure to not only provide challenges which are in order for the actual character's level to deal with, but also making sure that their player characters understand this is an old school type of adventure. Running is good. Fleeing is good. Living to fight another day is good, as opposed to the modern kind of approach to role-playing games where it's just kill everything. Fight them, fight everybody. So we get a few different appendixes, or appendices, as people like to say. One thing I was really pleased to see is with the new monsters, each of them gets an image. I like that. Now I'm like, okay, now I'm not feeling so bad about that $49.99 MSRP. So we get different monsters. We get some of the important NPCs as well. The Brain Collector, which is kind of like a spider, a weird looking spider. Flaming Heron says, running, you say? Do we get experience and loot from that? No. Just like no loot on Wandering Monsters. That's something else that modern players have a hard time grasping, because nowadays, usually the Wandering Monsters have, goodies. So, yeah, okay, whatever, let's kill them. One of the aspects of old school is that you didn't want to waste a lot of time because you were rolling for Wandering Monsters every so often, every 60 minutes, every 50 minutes, all dependent on like the adventure and what kind of noise you're making and things like that. And essentially all these Wandering Monsters were using up your resources, your hit points, your magic spells, your healing potions. So, and you got experience, but the old school way is you get your biggest chunk of experience from gold and treasure, not from the monsters. And of course, you could gain experience for peacefully resolving something with monsters you may run across, or other adventures and things like that you'd run across in dungeon. You didn't necessarily have to fight in order to get experience, because once again, most of the experience is from the coinage. So one aspect of the adventure that I find kind of interesting is the fact that we've got we have NPCs, like right here. This NPC actually comes from a Clark Ashton Smith story. So I got to be honest, I have never read any of the Clark Ashton Smith fantasy. I don't get an opportunity to read a lot for pleasure, although I enjoy reading role-playing game stuff. But I do tend to listen to audiobooks at night. That's how I go to sleep. I listen to audiobooks for a couple hours. And I keep wanting to pick up the Audible's got it's five different volumes, and they're all the Clark Ashton Smith fantasy stories. And I think each one is like 14 hours or so. I keep hemming and hawing to try to pick them up, because I would like to check them out. And one of the interesting things I always thought about Clark Ashton Smith was when Robert E. Howard and H.P. Lovecraft both had died, he gave up writing fantasy. He still wrote. And in fact, I think he was better known for his poetry after that point. But he didn't really want to have anything to do with that genre anymore after Howard committed suicide and Lovecraft died from cancer, because he was a correspondent with both of them and corresponded with them a lot. He was kind of part of that Lovecraft circle. So some of his stories had nods towards Lovecraft, the mythos, of course. So we get a lot of new monsters and NPCs as well. So that is the one appendix. Then we have new magic items. We also have the Hunting Lodge. So this is a short adventure that can take place before the characters find the tomb. So we've got that. And then we've got some handouts. Not a ton, but a few. As well as our maps. And of course, it bears repeating that because of the agreement with Wizards of the Coast, no PDFs of this, which I find super bizarre because you can go purchase the PDF of the original adventure easily enough over on, I think it's on Drive Through RPG. If it's not Drive Through RPG, it's DM's Guild. So I find that very bizarre. I mention it every time I review one of these, that I think it's silly. And of course, Wizards is like, oh, piracy, piracy, piracy. And it's like, okay. Hate to break it to you, you haven't stopped the pirates at all. So anyway. So unfortunately, that does take away from some of the usability of this. One of these days, I would love to have seen Goodman Games get the approval just to do the handouts as a PDF or the maps as a PDF. Just those. So, I don't know. All right. So that is Original Adventures Reincarnated, Volume 5, Dungeons & Dragons, Castle Amber. Kevin asks, wasn't Hyperborea Smith's setting as well? I don't know. As I mentioned, I'm not overly familiar with Clark Ashton Smith. I know he had, starts with a Z. Zatharia or something like that is one of the fantasy lands. I know that, I think that's like one of his most, I think that's his most famous. But he wrote a lot. And I would say, from my understanding, once again, I think I have read all of 2 stories of his in my lifetime. And I would say, as a reader, well, at least the 2 stories I remember, he's about as accessible as Howard and more accessible than Lovecraft. Because Lovecraft can be, not myself personally, but I do know people who have had a bit of a hard time with making their way through Lovecraft stories, especially early Lovecraft. The Gibbonous Moon, those kind of things. But I don't know if Hyperborea was his setting or not. Very well could have been. So Simeon was asking, what are we looking at tonight? Well, now you know. Now you know what we were taking a peek at. All right. So, as I mentioned previously, Castle Amber, I like the original adventure. I don't love the original adventure. It's too much Funhouse for my personal tastes. It's not to the level of like Tomb of Horrors, which I personally think is a pretty crappy module. I know it's everybody, not everybody. There are a lot of people who are like, oh, that's the best. And you can tell that this was not a tournament adventure either, because even in the original adventure, it's not as if the players are being kind of rushed through it, right? You are not going to finish this up in a single setting by any stretch of the imagination. And with the additional material, you are going to get a lot of playing sessions out of Castle Amber. Of course, all depends on how quickly you play and how many hours you play. But for the most part, you are going to get a good number of hours around the game table with Original Adventures Reincarnated Castle Amber. I like a lot of what's going on in this volume. I like that we don't have a multitude of print runs just taking up space. So I definitely dig that. I like some of the changes that Michael Curtis has made by kind of tying things together a bit better. And also by kind of giving some of the set pieces a reason to exist. So I'll give you a great example. So right off the bat, after the player characters have awoken and then they find out we're not in Kansas anymore. We're not in the known world anymore. And they can't leave because of this gray mist, this lethal gray mist that's surrounding them. First place they end up in is an area with one of the ambers. And like I said, there are a multitude of them. And he has these 3 magical men. And one of them is a boxer. So they're constructs. And he invites the player characters to volunteer a champion to fight the boxer and encourages them to make bets. So essentially what happens is player characters enter the room, this begins, and it's sort of like, okay, so what were they doing before the characters show up? This guy just sitting there waiting. I sure hope today somebody shows up. Maybe you want to gamble with me. Been doing this for 100 years. Let's see what happens. So like Michael Curtis kind of fleshes it out where player characters could be walking in and there's a couple of hobgoblins dragging somebody out. So there just was a match going on. And now, oh, hey, we've got somebody new. Step right up. So Michael Curtis does that with quite a few of these set pieces to kind of make it less like you're just walking through a haunted house. It's like, oh, what's going on in this room? So I do definitely like that as well. As an adventure, it's just a bizarre kind of, I mean, there's some stuff that's like horrible, horrifying, should be played for scares. Other things are played more, not necessarily for laughs, but more kind of a fairy tale vibe. There's some flights of whimsy in here as well. And there are some really cool encounters that take place also. So I do like what's been done with Castle Amber. I like this 5e conversion. The adventure itself is just not, my favorite, but I do like this. So on a scale of 0 to 10, I actually give this a 9 out of 10. Just because the adventure isn't necessarily my cup of tea completely, I think this is so far the best work that Goodman Games has put together in the original Adventures Reincarnated line. Really, really like what they've done. Love the fact that all the NPCs, all the monsters, we get an image. To me, that's really important. Yes, granted, do I need an image of a killer bee? No. I can figure out what a killer bee looks like or a giant bee, but it's nice to have the images anyway. So once again, really, really dig this. 9 out of 10. And it is available now. You can pick it up. There's an MSRP of $49.99. So not too far off, I will have my review of Volume 6, The Temple of Elemental Evil. It is a 2-volume set. And I know folks out there are curious if I will be reviewing Volume 7, Dark Tower, or is it Return to Dark Tower? I think it's Return to Dark Tower. I don't know. I have no idea. Once again, as I mentioned, Castle Amber was not a review copy from Goodman Games. Goodman Games really, I've reached out. They're just really not interested in providing review copies, and that's fine. And I'm not going to twist their arms or anything. So I don't know. I don't know if I'll be taking a peek at Volume 7 or not. It's not out yet anyway. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. All right. That is it for this time out. Kathy Evans says that they just looked it up and Hyperborea was a setting that Clark Ashton Smith used. There you go. So once again, he was a correspondent with Howard and pretty good friends. Like I said, when Howard committed suicide and then shortly afterwards, Lovecraft died from cancer, Clark Ashton Smith was like, I'm hanging it up. It broke his heart, as far as I understand. Broke his heart. He still wrote. He was still a writer, but he gave up the fantasy genre. So kind of sad. But he wrote quite a bit, so he was pretty prolific. I think one of the reasons why we don't hear more about him is because his creations aren't in the public zeitgeist, you know, like Conan or Cthulhu. So he didn't have that kind of mythos. I think he dipped his toes into other authors' worlds quite a bit as well. All righty then. So that is it for this time out. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It will not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. Central, right here on YouTube. I'll also inform you when I upload other videos, such as my upcoming first look at Call of Cthulhu, Cults of Cthulhu from Chaosium Inc. I'll be shooting that this weekend. So stay tuned. I am looking forward to taking a peek at this. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you won't find here on the YouTube channel. Come on, you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Next week, the fantasy role-playing game celebration continues, I believe, with a week devoted to Castles and Crusades, although I have not received the books yet. So we shall see. But that is the game plan. If they don't show up, then we'll be looking at something else. So there you have that. If you were watching live, thank you very much. If you took part in chat, a tip of the cap to you. Always appreciate that, so I don't feel like a complete doofus just staring into a camera and talking into the ether. But I also know a lot of people out there, they don't have an opportunity to watch the stream live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. I truly, truly appreciate anybody out there taking time out to watch any of the videos on the Gaming Gang channel. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week as well as the weekend. And here's hoping each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.
Oh, hey, you're still here. Well, if that's the case, by all means, subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel by clicking right here. Check out the latest episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch, or find out what YouTube recommends you check out from the channel. And of course, once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks for watching.